lockdown.
We had a
I'm
different
obviously
lockdown than
joking.
Irish people. Like, obviously, my family are ringing me at the moment, like, after you're back in the second lockdown. And I was like, that's probably the easiest thing to do is not go to Offaly during lockdown or just in general. So I just keep on like making a joke out of it with them. And of course, my dad was like, oh, I went to Lochborough there the other day and there was nothing but people from Northern Ireland. I was like, okay, they're free to go where they want. And now they're back in the second lockdown. So I'm feeling that like sense of like they're jealous and they're angry and they're upset and they're let down. And I feel guilty by being over here and like I'm going to Victoria at the weekend and I was away like camping and I went like, you know, we're all doing stuff. We didn't have a full lockdown like they did. And like me trying to hold them up is like a full-time job. Like just trying to keep up with them. Like, what are you guys doing? Like try to be positive. And then they're all just like, the weather's crap. This is crap. We're locked down again. Everything is bad. And it's just a constant negative. And I'm finding myself where I'm just like, I actually don't really want to talk to people from home because it's just, it brings me down. And it like flips up like my total like equilibrium on a daily basis. Like I can't speak to them because I feel guilty. And I'm just like, I wish I could understand what they're going through, but I can't. And it's just like, it will get better, but just please, just for right now, just hold it together. But you can't be there for them.
Yeah, well, I agree. I agree with that 100%. I would say it's not just us away from home; it's the people at home who want to see you as well. Every time I ring home, I get asked 10 times. We all do get asked 10 times, when are you coming back? Is there any sign you come home? All that kind of thing. You know, they're your parents, your grandparents, whoever it is, are also might be living on their own and they might only see a small group, 3-4 people, because they're keeping that group and they're not spreading, they're not going anywhere into town or anything or whatever. So yeah, like, I mean, as you said, Louise, there, it's hard. It actually is hard talking to the people back home. I find myself talking to people less back home, and I know they probably won't watch it, but when you're talking to your parents, they're really focusing on when are you coming home. Like it seems to be in their head now. You know, we're bored, we're getting fed up with this. You know, what's going to brighten us up a bit. You know, it'd be great to see him or her or whatever. So you know, it is hard, but it's the way it is. I suppose we have to just keep going.
I found out today after I think so. I haven't been home since November 2018, so I was due to go home in June, and like that again, it's everybody's kind of like, oh, when are you coming home? When are we going to see you? What are you doing? Is it difficult? Like, are you finding it harder? And in all honesty, it's probably, as both Paul and Louise have said, like it's harder chatting to them because I've had a best friend who's now had to cancel her wedding twice. I've had 2 best friends that are both nurses, that both ended up with COVID. One is still off work and hasn't gone back and hasn't been able to. And they're both like kind of chatting to me. And they were even saying like, you look like you're having a great time. And I'm like, well, I am and I am. And I don't know how else to say it to you. It's like, I was like, yeah, I'm sure like you guys are okay as well. But it is really hard watching everybody kind of back home and they're like, oh, will you come back home soon? We do it, and then it's the logistics of trying to get home with. Like you're talking about like it's 4 weeks at least because you want to get home for those 2 weeks, and then you don't want to put anybody in danger when you're going home to self-isolate, and then you have to come when you come back. You still have to do those 2 weeks here as well. So it's just so difficult.
Yeah, it's really not practical at the moment. We should have been home right now for my mum and dad's 50th wedding anniversary next week, and that had always been the plan, and everybody was really looking forward to that, particularly after us having a very tough year last year. One of my siblings passed away after a very short illness, so we were all kind of reeling from that at the end of the year and still in shock and dealing with it and grieving, and then suddenly COVID hits, and you know, prior to that hitting, I was still thinking, oh, we'll get back in August. It'll be a much happier event. It'll be a nice chance to connect with everybody again and just kind of regroup after our experiences last year. And, you know, here we are, we can't travel. And, you know, it's not worth taking the risk in the current circumstances, you know, for elderly parents.
100%.
Yeah, that's it. I was supposed to be going home in May for a wedding, didn't get home obviously, and the wedding didn't happen. Same thing, she's had to cancel it twice now, bless her. And then next month, and in about 4 weeks now, I'm going to be an auntie for the first time, and I won't be home for that. So it's hard kind of when you're missing these big life experiences. I know I've been in Canada 5 years now, and I've been lucky enough and privileged enough to actually go home at least twice a year. I've always made that choice, and then all of a sudden now it's been taken away from me, and I've never been like away from home for more than 6 or 7 months. So this is actually like the longest I've been away from home, and the longest I've gone without seeing my parents. And you do have that level of guilt, because as well as you're getting the questions of when you're coming home, you also feel like, well, you probably are dying for me to come home a bit more than I'm dying to go home, just because of the difference in like lockdown and the measures. And like we do like have it better with regards to how what we can do and stuff at the weekend, and we're not as strict. So yeah, I definitely agree that I do have that level of guilt around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we always, like, even before COVID, or myself at least anyways, I've always had this level of guilt about like being here and like being the only person or one of the only people in my family that's living so far abroad and stuff. And now the way things are happening, like we're seeing, like, or at least I'm seeing my family is kind of closer, like watching them in their WhatsApp groups, like all cousins and aunties texting all day long. Like I kind of wake up in the morning to streams of messages, and I'm like, it's so sweet to actually see it, because I guess the COVID has brought it on, but then you're kind of missing out, you know, and like the time difference, you throw in a funny joke, but it's all missed. Like, so yeah, I think that guilt we already had, and then kind of you have a bit more on top of it now, and then the fear of missing out, it's kind of, yeah, I don't know, I think it's definitely gotten worse, but yeah, I think we're all the same.
I was the opposite to you, Kate. We were supposed to go home in May as well, but it was cancelled obviously, and but then I actually did want to go home. I was in probably about 3 weeks, a month ago. I was come to the end of a road trip. You know, everyone says you're all saying, "Oh, you're having a great time over there," but the short championship back home was very inviting to me. And but I honest to God, I could genuinely say it ruined the last 4 or 5 days of my trip, because I was constantly flights, will I book, will I not book, thinking of all the pros and cons. And I came down to the fact that I thought I might be a bit selfish to go home for that, and risking other people, you know, we'd be the worst in the world if you brought home, if you contracted the virus. Someone got it in the club, or your family got it. You know, if I said, am I being selfish? I didn't know what to do. I was totally torn apart. Like, so there is people in that situation who probably want to go home for whatever reasons it is, whether it be sport or just to see people in general, and they're probably torn whether they should or not. It's a hard decision, like.
Yeah, there's no kind of definitive real guidelines about whether you can or not. So people have this disconnect about, well, it doesn't say that I can't go, but if I do, but you know, it are like, yeah, it's something that I think goes through people's heads. Like, you know, I was like, am I going to take the risk? But it's all just kind of, yeah, it's inherently worse, and then ruins 4 days of your road trip or whatever.
Oh yeah.